Big episode here, guys, today. Welcome to the Bearded Tog Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Mason, and this is the most fun photography and creatives podcast on the planet. I'm just going to put that out there right there. So, dropping the mic. Just kidding. Don't want to drop it because that would make a really weird noise wherever you're listening. Quick housekeeping thing. We have like the form. You can sign up. There's something to do. We've been talking about this for a while, but we have the long-term mentorship sign up page up and ready to go. It's in the show notes of this podcast in your podcast player. It's also on the Instagram for the Bearded Tog. And if you go to adammason.com/podcast, you'll also find it there. If you're interested or just curious or want to know pricing or what it would all entail to be basically mentored for an entire year by me and a few of my other expert friends, then that's where you want to go. So you just go to that link in the show notes and we'll make sure that you get all the information you need. We're only going to take 10 people. So definitely the interest page can go as many people as you want. But when registration launches in a few weeks, we're hoping it goes quick. And we already have a few spots claimed. And today we're talking to Corinne Thompson. So Corinne is a good friend of mine. She is a wonderful, amazing photographer. And most importantly, the reason we're bringing her on today is because she is so good at emboldening and connecting with couples to make them be who they are, to make those photos match their personalities. And she takes a really intentional approach with just getting to know her couples and connecting with them. And so I love having people on who have, a connection and a drive at a specific thing. And so for Corinne, it's just emboldening her couples. Like the connections she makes are so good. And it shows throughout her brand. Like her branding's on point. So had to have her on. She is an absolute pleasure to come on. And she's kind of local. She's from Baltimore, so not a too far drive for me. So without any further ado, here's Corinne. Let's go. Corinne, what's going on?
Holla!
I love it. We always joke with guests, and you and I literally just did this where I was like, try to be your most authentic self, and you say, hey, like, don't fake it. And you did not disappoint.
I used that word so much when I was younger, and it's been a long time since. So you're bringing it back out of me. I love it. So, because you said holla, and obviously holler is like slang for holler, and then holler is like from this other thing, but this is totally off topic, and we might as well just start with this because this is fun. But I love my podcast because it like people are going to listen to this episode and they're going to only have like they're going to know certain things about you that they would never know otherwise. So that's the goal. But I read a stat the other day. Like we all know that like Jay-Z is a ginormous artist, right? Mm-hmm. And I heard, it was because holler made me think of like hip hop and rap music and like DMX and Ja Rule. I read something the other day that for Jay-Z's like first few albums, even up to like Watch the Throne, DMX and Ja Rule outsold him. But Ja Rule and DMX, especially DMX, were in the spotlight for negative things so often and like kind of battling with like drug addiction and being in and out of prison that like they couldn't sustain as much as Jay-Z did. And Jay-Z, as far as I know, stayed in pretty good standing, I guess, with certain things and was able to, now become, Jay-Z, like, and I just thought that, I thought that was like so interesting. And I'm like, like what would life look like right now if DMX was as large as Jay-Z is right now? Who knows? The world can go mysterious places. So maybe he will.
Yeah. We just have like videos of, presidential electorates, being like, y'all gonna make me act a fool up in here, and be like, what? How is that still a thing?
Act a fool. Sorry, I had to do that.
No, I love it. That's what we're here for. So I always like to start off with like kind of a silly question, and we've actually had ice cream before, so I might know this answer. But what's your favorite ice cream flavor and why?
Mine is chocolate. I am sorry. I'm super boring, but I'm a chocolate girl through and through. I throw in some coffee every once in a while, but I don't like to go too eclectic.
Were you, you say chocolate, like you wanted to keep it safe. Did you ever branch out and try a new flavor and you're like, oh, this is awful. I'm just sticking with chocolate forever.
I'm too nervous to, because I'm like, you don't spend a whole lot on ice cream, but I don't like have time to like go around and taste all the different eclectic flavors. So I just stick to like what I know and what I like. But with food, I'm a little different. I don't know why it's just ice cream with that. So who knows? I have a weird specific mind with those things.
That's interesting. All right, next time we get ice cream, we will not get the flavors that we usually get. We have to try new flavors.
You're making me so uncomfortable. No.
I'll pay for it, so it won't even matter.
Okay.
We'll have to risk it, and if it's terrible, we'll swap it out for chocolate.
That's fair. All right.
I grew up.
Maybe the other scoop will be chocolate too, so I could still get my chocolate in.
That's true too. That's totally true. Or it could be like chocolate based, and they're like all friends. There was a ice cream shop near where I grew up that had like over 100 flavors, and they had all kinds of weird stuff like bacon and scorpion bite and all these weird things and some inappropriate names for ice cream I can't say.
Yes.
And it's just and they're all really amazing. They're all really good, and like the bacon really tastes like bacon, and like they had like 5 different flavors of vanilla. It was incredible.
Like that's what I feel like is weird with ice cream. Like bacon, I just want to eat normal bacon. Like I don't want it in cold format. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather have hot, crispy, juicy bacon. You
like the purest form of like whatever the thing is.
I think that's why I'm not the eclectic fan.
Totally. Do we know? I mean, it makes sense. Like vanilla and chocolate are the biggest ice cream flavors, but like, were they the first ice cream flavors? And maybe that's why they're the biggest?
That is a question for Google.
Like, would they be the most pure thing, or like the original thing? Like, did some guy make something else and then he's like, oh, what do I call this? This is bacon, Or they always make that joke that a Jamaican guy is saying beer can, and it's like beer can. And I don't know. We'll have to, somebody Google that and message us and let us know.
Yes.
I love that. That was a good tangent on ice cream, but it's helps people get to know you a little bit. There was another episode where I asked a guest who I knew was a really big Taylor Swift fan, what her favorite Taylor Swift breakup was.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah, and I just try and like, now it's my idea to just set my guests on purpose, like off the rocker right immediately.
Well, this kind of is a good segue because I will be talking about asking questions in this episode. So
that's true. That's true. So we kind of talked about like you're all about emboldening couples and making them feel like themselves. That's how I would interpret it. And your website is super well put together. And I feel like over the past 18 months, as I've kind of been watching, things, I don't like using the term blowing up, but I would say that you've been like diving in. Like it's magical to watch somebody that you feel like they're in the place they're supposed to be, or at least they're getting close to it. And I feel like you're in that spot. And so tell us a little bit about you. Like, give us the background. You're like, where are you from? What do you do? What do you shoot? And then like, what does that mean? Like, I know you're into emboldening couples. Like, what has that process been like for you?
You're going to make me cry. That was awesome. I appreciate you feeling that way. I heard a little rumor from Robert that you were feeling that way, and I was really touched. And so I'm Corinne Thompson with Love to the Core Photo, and I am located in Baltimore City. Love my city so much. It's a big part of me. I'm not from there originally. I'm from the next county over in Carroll County, big farmland area. So I made my way to the big city. And I've loved it ever since. I shoot mostly weddings and engagements. I really find that I connect with people a lot better than inanimate objects, I guess. I feel, I'm very sociable. I love talking to people, love meeting new people. And, with couples, like something that, I've always struggled through is, finding who I was and, accepting who I was. And, I think when you find someone that is so, when you find someone that you want to make this commitment with, it's almost an acceptance of the other person. And I think that's something to highlight and something to celebrate. I believe in showcasing that. So I love to really draw out who people are and how they interact together, because it's such a rarity. Not a rarity, but just like it's really cool when that acceptance happens. And, I really love to bring that out in people.
Was there, we're going to get super deep in here, just why not? And start off like, people run their businesses, especially personally, as like a reflection of either, who they've been, who they are, or who they want to become. And, at least most of the time. And so was there was there a time in your life where maybe you weren't allowed to be bold, or maybe you've experienced like emboldening your friends or people or a past job or something like that, where you kind of like I always say that I'm addicted to what it feels like to be at a good reception. And so like, every wedding that has like a good party, I feel like, yeah, like let's go do that again. And so what was kind of that trigger that made this like part of, just even personally, like what was that part that made you want to let others experience that?
I think recently it's been kind of a something that I've noticed that, it is my reason why I do this. I'm someone that has gone through therapy, and I think, it's an amazing thing to do for yourself, just to get some perspective on your life and, figure out what you need help with. And there was this moment of clarity when I was just talking with my therapist about, my business and, why I feel so connected and so fulfilled by it. And she was like, you're doing for other people what you want to do for yourself. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. And I was like, really saw that for how I've been working and doing more prompt work and doing more directions and doing more personal, intimate, creating connections with the couple, not just posing. So that really struck a chord with me. And, I was kind of finding my way to myself through this whole process of creating this business too. And so that was like unbelievable when that kind of came to factor. And from that point, I felt like I've just been so bold to like keep pushing it. So I'm glad that other people are seeing that for sure.
Were you the same? How long have you been a photographer?
Amateurly for most of my life, but in business for about 4 years.
Did you have the same kind of mission and vision, at the beginning of those 4 years, or like what was business like for you then? And then when was this personal switch?
I think the beginning was just trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. Because, I think the business side is so much different than the creative side. It's so much more analytical, and like my brain's working with it now, but like, I think it's definitely a different, pull point for my brain. So, it's a little bit harder for me. And I think it's harder for a lot of us in this industry because we're so creative that we want to just be creative all the time. So the business side was so different and new to me. So I was just trying to figure out how to sustain it. So that was probably the first 2 years. And then the third year I was like, I want to stand out in my own way. Like I was just like, I'm tired of seeing the same old stuff. I was just kind of bored with my posing and bored with, the photos that I was coming out with. And I kind of just started, I created these questions in my mind. And I sent them, I wrote, it was a list, and I sent them to each of the person in the couple. So each person filled them out separately without even knowing what they said about each other. And then during our session, I would read these answers to the couple together. And the interaction was just so beautiful. And they were like, there was some crying, there was some laughing, there was some giggling. And I was just like, oh, I love this. And, I've changed over the years with that list because it was too much just holding a piece of paper in front of me and just reciting it, and took a while. So I've kind of doubled it down a little bit, but there was like questions like, what's your favorite quirk about one another? What's something that they do for you that you really appreciate, and it's small, but you think it's the world. You think it means the world to you. So that's things that I've really liked to really dig deep with them, so that they understand, that it's so much more than, what they look like during photos too.
I love that. It's something I learned a few years back, and it kind of like, it opened my eyes as a business owner, whether as a photographer or whether I served coffee or whatever. And it's like, it's actually from what's her name? Anne Faith? No, Anne something. She's like this is terrible. This is not well researched. But it was the founder of Auntie Anne's Pretzels. And she said something like, I'm not in the pretzel business, I'm in the people business. And she's like, no matter what you do, like whether you serve coffee or you do IT or you do spreadsheets, like you're not a spreadsheet business, you're in the people business. And it's so different. And I can sense like the DMs I get for advice about how to handle a client situation or something like that. It always comes from this framework where we're treating the client as if it's like a robot, or we think of like, oh, they're a user. It's like, no, like that's a person. And, you know, especially in our industry, it's usually everybody's first time getting married. And it's just like buying a house. Like this process is like unknown for them. And so that's one of those things where it's like we're dialed in and we're like trying to love people more and more and more. And especially for our business too. It's like, I love what you do as far as like getting to know them. And there's a different connection. Like I'm sure something that I've gone through and we're going to ask you about is like every time I've learned something new and wanted to implement it in my business, it takes a long time to change because there's like overlap, you know? So like a couple who booked me maybe 18 months ago, we're going to have a little bit different experience than the couple that booked me a year ago and even one 6 months ago, because we're changing how we do things, we're evolving. And, you know, and honestly too, I talked to Benj Heisch about this, is like, he still gets weddings that don't look like the ones that go on his Instagram or don't necessarily fit with like the mountain elopement vibe. And so, you know, I'm sure that there's still a few couples every once in a while that are like, oh, I like Corinne. She did a good job. I love her photos. Like they might love you 65%, which is good enough for most businesses, but you might not have that like connection. So like, have you experienced that recently? Like you have these clients where you're really connecting with, and there's still a few that you're like, oh, this one, they were fun, but it wasn't as transformative of an experience for you, or it didn't give you that like fulfillment.
I get that sometimes. But a lot of times when I'm working with couples, you know, I kind of come into my own head about just like, this is who they are. This is how they interact with each other. You know, it may not be, you know, might not be excited about it, but, you know, they're excited for themselves too. So like, I love seeing that. You know, and I do get those couples that I'm just like, bam, bam, thank you, ma'am. We're awesome. We're together. We're like having so much fun. We're jumping and driving and everything. And other couples are just more quiet and, you know, and really connected in that way. And, you know, might not be as PDA or anything like that, but that's who they are. And that's how they found a way to love each other in that way too. And that's something that I still want to showcase. So, you know, I'm not too worried about venue and flowers, and you know, I get excited if they're amazing, but I really, you know, I find joy in the connection that comes out of weddings, and that when together, I think it's I don't know, it's just something so cool. Like I was like thinking, I was like, what if weddings like never, like what if somehow weddings just stop happening? Like when would you ever get all those groups of people together in one moment of time if weddings didn't exist? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's so interesting to think about, because I think it's such a rarity in general outside of weddings that all these people are coming together. But so that's what I find exciting to myself. But yeah, I've had couples that are, you know, it's also a communication on my part. Like I might not be able, might have messed up communication with, you know, what I do and how I work, because I've gotten Pinterest brides before, and I'm just like, girl, let's focus on you two. Let's not focus on what everybody else is going to see. Let's focus on you two. So that's what I am trying to work on too.
Totally. Yeah. It's one of those things, it seems, and I feel like you do a good job at that and like diving in, but like we've all been in that client meeting where, you know, at least for me, I ask my couples, like, why did you choose this other person? Or what do you like about them? And, I've had those answers where like, we're all bawling at the end of the client meeting, we're like, this is so beautiful. Please book me, and at the same time, I've had those where, and, now I've seen that it can be, there's no like standard of even like gender. It's not like, oh, the guys are more quiet. Like I've seen both, all genders kind of react this way, but like there's sometimes they'll still give you like, I like them because they're smart and they're funny. And, it's almost like I try really hard to like dive deeper and just like, so what makes them funny? How are they funny? What's something funny that like, made this happen, or what was this clue? And, like for my wife, like her thing, and we actually made a video when we got engaged and she mentioned this and she was like, when Adam and I came back from the pool or something like that, he asked me if he could put his towel in my bag, which was not a euphemism at all. And, and she said, sure. And, I liked that she was like willing, she was like a helper, and not in like a patriarchal way, but she was my teammate. And, but at that time for her, she was like, yeah, I like doing even the mundane things with him. Like, it's not just about having fun or going to the beach party. Like, I'm also cool with like, hey, let's put our towels in this grocery bag and let's, go to Giant afterwards. And, that, whatever that is for the couples, I think is something that like you and I, we both try to find out, and I guess too, couples are meeting other vendors. So they're more reserved, like do you meet your couples in person or online, or like, what's your favorite way to make that happen?
Yeah. And for me, like, I like asking those questions like during the session because it's a little bit more vulnerability and they are focusing more on each other rather than on the camera. So they're telling each other like the answers to the questions that I ask them so that they're getting a little bit more emotional. They're getting a little bit more connected to the other person. And it's kind of makes them get into a comfortability that they can keep on moving forward within the session and just feel like I'm not there, which is really nice. And, I have some questions that I only use for engagement sessions. And then I have some questions that I only use for weddings, because, I think on the wedding day, the more deeper questions are more fun because, they just got married. So it's more meaningful then. So I always, the one that I love, I always ask it on the wedding day is why that person? Why your partner? And that can mean so many different things, which is cool. And usually I'm far enough away that I don't really hear, but they just feel, just really, really, just all encompassing love right then and there. Like they just like are so enamored by the other person, and it's really cool to see.
That's awesome. Now, do you get that same? I think what I was trying to get at. So now you ask those questions kind of like during the sessions. How do you know, or what are some ways, like even just from initial client meeting when you're meeting these couples, that you can kind of like get them into your process, if you know what I'm saying? Or like, how do you know if they're like a good fit up front?
A lot of times, like, I talk with my couples, like any inquiries over the phone first. And usually I can get a sense of, if we're a right fit, or if they think I'm a right fit. A lot of times, I've been lucky where, it's been obvious and they're like, yeah, we're going to go in a different direction. And that's okay. Like, I am totally fine with that. Because, I'm not the right photographer for everyone. Like, I know that. And that's the greatest thing is, being in an industry that there's so many people that are out there for the right person, for the right couple, which is great. So I usually, let me think. I usually can tell, and then I just usually am like, hey, like this is what this is my process. When we meet in person, that's when I really like, after they book, we meet in person. And that's when I really like to tell them about, a little bit more why I do this and what they should expect from the sessions. And I want them to trust me as much as they can, because the process is, really cool at the end. I remember I did an engagement session and they were really cute together. They were having so much fun with the prompts and the directions that I was doing. And I was, I hadn't really connected with the groom beforehand. much before. So I was excited to hang with him. And it was so funny. The bride texted me later and she was like, Mike just told me that was a lot of fun. And I was just like, yes. I was like, score. I love hearing that. Cause you just don't know, cause a lot of people will take it differently. So, and I've had clients where, this how I work during sessions doesn't work for them. And then we just redo it and we do a different way of things. So it's all about just feeding off of people and see how they also respond to what I'm saying too. I try to make sure that I'm aware of that too.
Now, so it's like you call them and then that first meeting, is that the shoot or is that just another meeting in person ideally?
It's usually another meeting in person. So, cause hopefully,
are they booked at that point?
What'd you say?
Are they booked at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So usually when we meet, it's about a year out, hopefully, if they're good. So we're not doing the engagement session a year out yet. So usually that's a couple months later. So we just kind of meet and talk about and just get to know each other over a drink or just having a nice time and really hearing about their families and what they're excited about the wedding for and stuff. So that's what I kind of do.
That's awesome. Now, how has that been scalable for you? Or do you take a certain number of weddings right now? Or what does it look like to meet with every couple? Or maybe you don't meet with every couple?
So I'm trying to meet with every couple after they book. Now, before it was just, I didn't have a process of kind of making sure that everyone gets the same experience. So I'm really working hard on that right now. So usually, so that's what I try to do. And then, my goal usually is 25 weddings a year. I would like to get that down so I can, really get to know people, and get really, really deep with them. So I'm thinking hopefully bringing that down to 10. But right now I'm set with 25 for this year and next year, I think.
Awesome. So what do you do when, because I love the idea of this, hyper getting to know couples. And I think a lot of other photographers want to, but it also is going to be more difficult or less difficult based on the personalities of the photographer and then the personality of the couple. How, what are some other ways that you can really help dig deep, not just through the questions in the sessions, but getting to know them or, the initial client meeting or call, how do they know, that you're trying to let them be themselves essentially, or what tips, what things have you learned kind of in that process?
So it's interesting. I would put it back to the sessions actually, because I really get to know them during the sessions. And I think I do a lot of prompts with them to make them feel excited and happy, but I get to see how they're interacting. So, I can myself can, connect with them on that level. But also, it's a very ever flowing thing. So we're always talking about their experiences during, it's not so rigid. I also like to do, a lot of prompt work. So just really some silly stuff. And a lot of times stories come out of that. So I get to hear their stories of, how they came together or how, what their relationship is like. And, so I really like to get to know them then too. And that initial meeting, I've really pushed to, find out more about them as well. Then, I had a client meeting, with my recently just booked couple, they're November 2019, but recently in Baltimore, and we met with each other and I found out he is a huge history buff. And, my grandfather was in World War II and has this amazing, service that he has done. He eventually went on to work in the CIA. So like really interesting stories. And he was just so enamored by it. And so we connected on that. And then the bride, I played lacrosse at Stevenson University, and she played lacrosse at Stevenson University a couple years after me. And so we knew each other on different levels, and I got to know him even more. So, you're kind of trying to feeding off of each other, which is really fun as well.
So I love like just diving deep, ironically, and curious. So, how are they sold, during that particular, like, it sounds like for a lot of photographers, it's like, hopefully the site wins them a certain percentage. And then your initial email hopefully is like within their budget and makes sense. And it's, the right length for them to read on their phone and respond or whatever. And, like, it seems like once they book is kind of like when you pour it on, essentially, like when you go for it.
Yeah.
Whereas like, so how, I'm curious,
so I show it through my brand. I think I put out a lot of just fun things. My website's really fun looking. My photos also show off a lot of fun things. I want to make sure that, my personality is shown so that they feel comfortable and they feel like, oh, I can get down with this girl. I can relate to this girl. And that's a lot of things that you need to do with your brand. You need to make sure that you are, a reflection of who you are too within your brand, so that, you'll get the couples that relate to you the best. And I've been lucky to mostly have people that are relating to me and that I really do connect with. And without, just a couple others that are a little bit different than me. But, I'm kind of a photographer for all. I really enjoy, bringing people from all walks of life and really getting to know them in so many different ways. And, I was telling you before we talked, like, I'm having a dinner party tonight with just a bunch of people that I don't really know very well, but I've always been inspired by them and know them in the community and seeing them at events all the time, but actually haven't had them in my home, or I've actually not been able to like get to know. So, those kinds of things I really push out, and for people to see and know that this is who I am.
Are those, is it mostly vendors tonight, or any clients coming as well?
Actually, no clients, and it's mostly people in other industries, which is really nice. And, it's always good to kind of get out of your industry a little bit so you can be inspired by others, and but also, be connected to the outside world a little bit too. So, yeah, I'm excited about it.
That's awesome. I always wonder about, like, there are certain clients where obviously we connect and it's like I want to hang out with them. And then I'm like, I'm prone to only want to hang out with the couples that, and this is fear talking, but like, that only loved their photos, or the only ones that I feel like they enjoyed it. Whereas like, that guy did a terrible job on our photos and he's got a granite countertop. He's the worst.
That's funny.
Yeah.
There's some couples that I would love to hang out with outside, and they, just getting married and all, they are slammed. So I totally get it. They're not looking to hang out with me again.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they don't have a need for you, but at the same time, I mean, like when a lot of what I do now is based on like when Sarah and I bought our house, the process our realtor took us through, and it was awesome. And like, I guess if she invited us to something, we would go, and like we'd be positive about it. So I need to think about that. Like we should do that. We should throw more parties for people, especially if there's pizza involved. It's not as fancy as a dinner party. That's awesome. So tell me, like, I love kind of like everything you do, and like all your, it sounds like, I'm stumbling because this is, like we've mentioned before, is like your brand does a lot of the work in a really good way. I mean, in a really good way. And like the, like your, online storefront, people can come in and browse the site and they might not book, but like by the time they're ready to purchase, like I think they're already a fan, which I think like helps out a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely does. And, I come from a design background. So, that's something that, not image is everything, but it definitely, pushes forward a message for other people to see. I'm very visually conscious and, really want people to feel welcome and enticed by, not just the images, but just the flow of the website and other things that I do on Instagram. And, something that I also was trying to do as well is make sure that my images speak for themselves. So, a lot of times, like the other day I had an inquiry and she was like, me and my fiance were just looking through and we just thought they were so happy. And like, we were happy looking through them. And I was like, that is awesome. Like, that's what I want for that. That's what I want for people to feel. And it's so interesting. Like, I also love those intimate, quieter, beautiful, images too, but I just love when there's a great laugh in a photo, and I think it's the coolest thing. And, so I'm always pushing for, them to just feel so calm and just completely happy. I've recently been called by my brides the person of calm. And it's so funny because I feel like I'm such a spaz at weddings. Like, you see me just shooting up and back down the venue, like nonstop. And so it's great to hear that that's something that they feel from me. But I also think it's from, how I push them to just feel like themselves. And it's really interesting. Like, these prompts that I use aren't really personal, some of them, but some of them are. And the ones that aren't personal really brings out just some cool interactions between the two of them. Cause, each person interacts differently and how they touch, how they talk to one another, how they're connecting. And it's always different. So that's what I like to show is, like, luckily I have variety from that. And, it's not the same thing over and over. And so, I do some like high knee skipping and, they're just so the guy has just like his knees like completely up in the air and the girl is just like coming along, skipping nicely and pretty. But the guy is just hysterical. Like, he's just going for it. And it's just awesome to see too. Or, I make them do a drunk walk and, there's some great couples that I have that just love to party. So they're like, yes, this is my kind of prompt, it's a really fun one. So like different things like that really bring out just a comfortability with each other and have them like, if they don't like to hold hands, they'll wrap their arms around each other in a different way. It's so interesting to see how it all kind of plays out.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like, the couples that are primarily booking wedding photographers these days they're not looking for, I think a lot of like weddings and marriage get a bad rap because, let's say this party couple or this couple who likes to enjoy and go to the bar on the weekends or like whatever, especially in Baltimore and DC, like those are big deals. It's the idea of a wedding for a lot of Americans, at least, we feel like we're about to dress up or not be ourselves or something, and that's like not appealing to us. And so nowadays you can have a wedding that feels like you. So it's like, why not have a wedding photographer that helps you do that? And it's such a more fun experience, and it's
exactly. It's an experience. Like, I really want them to feel that it's an experience for them rather than it's a job, or it's not a job, but it's a have to thing on your wedding day.
Right. Now, is there, if you had somebody, say they came to you or somebody's listening here and let's say they have good branding, but it looks like, I'm trying to think, it looks just like a company rather than a person, and they want to dive in, they want to have deeper connections with their couples. Like, what's your first step? Obviously, there's a lot of process that goes into, and you've kind of built in a bunch of different systems. Like, what's the first step that you would tell them?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I think just keep pushing more personal. Instagram stories is such a great way to really show, your life and who you are and really break down what you really love out of what you do. like for me, something that's really important to me is inclusion and diversity, and making that a conversation in this industry, and making sure that minorities are being heard. So that's something that I have a story highlight on my Instagram for people to look through and be aware that, that's something I believe in. It doesn't have to be, just blogs or just content that you're putting out, but it could also be, what's your favorite restaurant in town? What's a great date night spot? Those kinds of things kind of draw out what people can relate to. So I think the first step is trying to find a way for people to relate to you and for people to connect with you on a personal level.
Yeah. It's like, people, I was this way as well, is when it comes to write, an about section on your website or,
so
like
hard.
Yeah.
So hard.
Like I didn't even have one on my site for a long time because I was that person who just had a brand and like I never showed my face anywhere. But then couples were like, Adam, we love you. This is awesome. And, they started hiring me, not just for my photos, but for me and like the personal approach that you take. And it's like, hey, just be bold. Like the first thing I always tell people is I'm like, hey, if you're only you running the company right now, make your Instagram profile photo your face. Like let's start with that. Like take away the look.
Yeah.
Just like keep it your face for now, until if you build a team or want to do that thing, but like keep it your face and like make sure. I've gotten a lot better at it this year of like the Rising Tide hashtag Friday introductions of just like, hey, every Friday I'm going to try and post a picture of either me or my wife or like something from our world and just give people, a window, a digital dinner party, if you will, where they get to meet us.
Yeah. And honestly, I know it's hard for some people. Like there's someone that I know pretty well that, it's a struggle for him and that's okay. Like I get like, you don't want your entire life out onto your, social media, but you don't have to put everything out there, just small tidbits, like that really just like bring in that connection from other people. And you can also make it so that you're putting out content, but then adding your personal touch, like saying like, why you love this couple, that's also great too. So it doesn't you don't have to feel like you're putting your entire life onto social media, to make people feel like they can connect to you. Cause sometimes, I don't share everything about my life. I like my privacy as well. So I get that. But that about page is just really interesting, to really put just a story to the name. Cause you see a face, but you really don't know the story behind that face too. So that's something also to think about. Right.
It's like, there are people nowadays who have no idea who Steve Jobs is, but they use an iPhone or they use
getting old.
Yeah, they use an iPhone or whatever, or they don't pay attention to that stuff. And it's like when I think if they knew more about Steve or at least like the good qualities, and this is totally not the podcast to talk about that kind of tech stuff, but like they would even know more why Apple products are the way they are, and it's because of the direct influence from the CEO. And like I don't know, I'm thinking about that a lot.
Watch, they're gonna steal your idea and totally use that and make that like something cool and like nostalgic and make it an amazing ad of some sort.
Yeah.
They're just gonna have Steve Jobs come back and just like talk, like just throw out some Steve Jobs speeches and just like make that their why now.
Oh man, now you're totally. So all I want to do right now is, so before I was born, before I think you were born, there was this ad that Apple put out, and it was the 1984 ad, and it changed like everything, and it was like, hey, things are going to be so different, and you're 100% right. I want that ad for me and be like, guys, like weddings don't have to look like this, and done. I'm going to go write that right now.
I want to put more. I'm terrible with videos. I'm terrible at moving video. It's just like such a disconnect with my brain. Like I need something still so I can control it better. But video is always moving, so it's so hard to control. And so I want to push out more like video, not video content, but just videos of my work process and stuff. And I have no idea where to start.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
No, anyway, that's tough. Is that just for advertising or just kind of like building content for the brand or something else?
Yeah, I want to create like a video that just kind of shows, how I work and, what to expect. And just so that they can kind of get an inside experience of it rather than, discovering it when they get there.
Totally. Yeah. Like setting the expectations. Yeah. I know a lot of people have like an experience section on their blog and, I think you can have the same thing, but in different forms. So, have it written and then have it, have a video version and then have, a text version or whatever. Those are the same thing. Have a photo version as well. And like have your guide. And, I think that's wise to have kind of like a video, just, hey, here's what's going to happen. And here's what some clients said or something like that. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. You should do that. End of year goal for Corinne is have that video done.
Yes. Probably wintertime. That's what I'm thinking.
There you go. Exactly.
when things have died down a lot.
Yeah. This podcast is the easiest way to rope people into things. It's just like, hey, you want to do that thing? Go do that. Because now there's, a few people holding you accountable.
Thank you. All right. So you'll be sending me text all the time about it. Great.
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah. I'm going to check in and all that stuff. I love it. Awesome. Anything else you want to kind of tell or feel like you didn't get to share as far as, just emboldening couples? Oh, one question. What do you do? Or do you do anything, or is there anything you would like to do? Or are you trying to come up with ideas? Because I think a lot of wedding photographers, myself included, after the wedding, there is this like sense of closure and doneness, which is both good and bad. Like, do you still, do you make an effort to kind of embolden them post wedding in any way? Are you still communicating with them? How does that work?
I haven't really communicated a lot, but I really, want to, be there for people. Like the bride this weekend, she's like, I just want you to be there for the rest, like be there for the most important moments of my life next. And I was just like, and that was like like she told me this during her reception. And I was just like, okay, we can do that. Like, I would love to hang with you more, and, I hope to like get to a point where I'm not as busy that I can do, those maternity sessions. I can do, those family photos and, cause that's such a cool way to just see how things have grown for them too in their own marriage. And, I would love to do, anniversary sessions too. Like those are great as well. But I like to check in, I will text them and just be like, I hope all is well. And looks like your honeymoon was amazing. That's what I usually touch on is the honeymoon. I'm like, totally just a wanderlusting person over here, just wondering where everyone has gone. So I usually just like text them and just be like, I hope your honeymoon was kick ass. So that's what I try to do anyway.
Awesome. No, I love that. That's like, I always tell my couples, they ask like, hey, do you do family or do you do baby sessions or whatever? And my rule of thumb is I'll do any kind of session for my wedding couples. Is so like, oh, you're having a baby, or oh, you're having maternity, or oh, you want to get family portraits done. Yeah. Like, I'll do anything for them. But like, I never advertise that I do like family photos or something like that, which is probably good and bad. Like, there's probably clients that don't know that I would do that for them, which we need to work on. And maybe that could be a piece of like follow up that I send. But at the same time, it helps. Also,
I'm just terrible with kids. Not in a bad way. I just like, I don't know what to do with them. I have no clue. And, I try to like bribe them and I bring a gift or whatever. Like if one of my brides has a daughter or son, and I'm just like, here's some binoculars to play with. I hope you like me for the rest of the day kind of thing. Like, I am terrible with kids. So I try not to do a lot of like, newborn sessions. Also, that's a whole nother ballpark of things. But anyway.
No, I mean, that's the trick I've learned, at least with kids, is you have to reward last. Like, don't reward them first and be like, hey, here.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, you're going to be a great dad if you ever become a dad. But because
I'm holding back from my kids.
No, that like, I just feel like your personality and just like you and your wife are just so fun. And I think you guys would just be fun parents in general. That's all.
I mean, movie nights all the time with our friends. Exactly. We love pizza. Yeah. My wife's a teacher, so she's got a lot more knowledge.
She's set. Yeah. She's set.
Yeah. And I'll just make sure that we have cool photos when it happens, hopefully. Yeah. That's awesome. Cool. So Corinne, where can people go to find you? And we'll link everything in the show notes, but where is the best place for people to say hi and tell them that their favorite ice cream flavor is not chocolate?
They can come say hi. I am at Love to the Core Photo on Instagram, and then lovetothecorephoto.com. So they can come say hi. I am going to leave everyone with my favorite prompt, just because I think it's hysterical, and that you can run with it if you want to. But I make couples hold hands, and I make them run Baywatch style. So they have to do a slow-mo run. And then while they're doing that, they have to play the penis game.
What in the world is that?
You don't know the penis game? It's so you're in a public space and you say the word penis really quietly, and then as you gradually go against each other, you have to get louder and louder and louder and louder.
That's like horse, but that is hilarious.
Yeah.
And I'll have to put a disclaimer at the beginning of this episode and be like, parents with young children.
But it's just fun, and they just crack up during it. So that's why I like that one. But you can take it as you will. You can change the word if you want to as well.
I love it. Or they could, man, this is so inappropriate. I was going to say they could combine it and be penis watch. But anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'll call it from now on.
That's a totally different prompt. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Corinne, for coming on. And I hope people go and say hi on Instagram. And seriously, it was awesome to hang out.
Thanks, Adam, so much.
That was an awesome episode. I'm biased, obviously, but I love Corinne, and I love just her sharing spirit and kind of the idea. She got really personal, really deep, that she wants her brand to reflect her, and she just does a good job at that. And so there are lots of photographers that do really well at that, and I think Corinne is one of them. Throughout the country, her website, I've met her, hung out with her. She's been over to the house for movie nights with a bunch of friends and I. We've interacted online a little bit. She matches that, and that's the best thing. That's what you want when your clients are seeing your site and all of that stuff and walking through the process. So really good to have her on. Definitely ping her on Instagram if you have questions. She would definitely be willing to answer, and she knows what's up. And we're a community here, so gotta let you know and say hi to her. Speaking of community, we've officially launched the announcement page for long-term mentorship. So what that is that's a year-long program with me next year in 2019, where I'm going to cater to that's a year-long program in 2019 where I'm going to essentially make it my personal goal to make 10 businesses really successful. And so they have to be photographers. And essentially what's going to happen is we have 12 education modules that they're not videos. You're not going to have to go on a course. It's going to be personalized attention. And my goal is for you to win. My goal is for you to become successful wherever you're at. And we can kind of walk through everything that it takes to run a business and get yourself in order, whether it's from SEO to branding to shooting to client interaction to workflow to systems, everything. So if you're curious and you want to get on that list, it's in the show notes. And also you can go to the Bearded Tog on Instagram and check out that link there. So seriously, ask me any questions if you're interested. Definitely check out long-term mentorship. Registration is going to open in a few weeks at the time of this recording, and we already have a few spots claimed. And so I definitely want you to get in there when you can. So thanks so much for listening, guys. Have a wonderful day.